Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Davis Links. It's so nice to see you virtually, but good to see the number that we have here. We're excited about our presentation that you're going to be listening to today. And same with the kind of the theme of the month around abuse prevention. That is our theme. So we have a number of presenters for you and want to point out the fact that part of what we're weaving through Davis Links presentations this year is the guidelines of trauma-informed practice. And we'll talk a little bit more about some things coming up that will help you get in sync with that a little bit more. So let me just tell you right off the bat, we'll have a main presentation by Marcy Clark, who's the Community Outreach Planner with the Davis Health Department, and no stranger to Davis Links. First of all, if there's Davis Links Planning Committee members in here, would you raise your hand, your virtual hand, so we can kind of see where you are? This is a small but mighty group who have your planning interests at heart. After Marcy, we'll have our first community partner presentation by Joey Thorogood with the Home Visiting Assistant Director with Prevent Child Abuse Utah. Wouldn't be an abuse prevention discussion without them. So thank you, Joey, for being here. After Joey, we will have another presentation by Hannah Powell, who's the Director of Community Advocacy at Safe Harbor. After Hannah, John Cowan from Senior Services will be presenting to us because we're trying very hard to remember that aspect of preventing abuse amongst our senior population. And then last, we'll have Brittany Peterson and Shannon Buss. Shannon, I hope I'm saying your name right. I think I am. Who are mental health therapists with Soul Recovery. And with that, let's go ahead and get started right off with Marcy.
Good morning, everyone. I am going to share my screen. And Debbie, if you'll just give me a heads up when you can see that.
I can see it, Marcy.
Thank you, Debbie. Like Debbie said, my name is Marcy Clark, and I work for the Davis County Health Department. I help with our abuse prevention work group. And so I've been asked to give an overview of abuse in Davis County. We have a lot of experts on the call today. So if you have any questions, I'm sure it can be answered by someone in today's group. So abuse and violence occur in many forms and to people of all ages, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, faith, or socioeconomic status. Abuse and violence happen in Utah, and it happens in Davis County. Just looking at the news, there have been a couple of big stories that have hit the news. One being of a charter school director who lives in West Point, but who directs schools that are located in Layton and Ogden. He was arrested and found with over 10,000 images of child sexual abuse on his phone. And then another recent case in the last couple of weeks, there was a domestic violence situation in Farmington where the perpetrator was killed. And so, unfortunately, Davis County is not immune to abuse and violence. These are the types of abuse and violence. This is not an all-encompassing list, but the types that seem to be growing very rapidly are financial exploitation among older adults and online sexual exploitation of youth and teenagers. So I did want to remind everyone of being a mandated reporter. Any person who has reason to believe that a child has been subjected to abuse or neglect must report. And you can report to law enforcement or Department of Child and Family Services. There's their phone number right there. And they also have an online form where you can submit a report. And then also we're mandated reporters for vulnerable adults, that any person who has reason to believe a vulnerable adult is being abused, neglected, or exploited is required to report. And a vulnerable adult is someone 18 years of age or older who is unable to protect themselves from abuse, neglect, or exploitation due to a disability, physical or mental impairment, or age, which is 65 years or older. And so those can be reported to law enforcement as well, or Adult Protective Services, and there's their phone number, and they also have an online form. So here's some Davis County data that I'll share with you today. And I'm sure all of you know and are aware that abuse is vastly underreported. And there are many reasons why people don't report. It could be fear of not being believed, fear of retaliation, fear of disrupting family dynamics, fear of not wanting to go to a rest home, and so not reporting that your caretaker is abusing you. There are many reasons. And I just wanted to share that before I show this abuse data. So we'll start with child abuse. These are the rates of supported cases of child abuse. This shows Davis County in blue and the state of Utah in dotted green line. And these are from the years of 2019 to 2024. Davis County rates of child abuse are lower than the states, but it follows the same pattern. This is Department of Child and Family Services fiscal year 24. This data is from their annual report. So this is for all of Utah. These are confirmed allegations by type and relationship of individual responsible for abuse or neglect to the child victim. So the purple is the parent, the turquoise is relative, and yellow is other. But you can see that the types of confirmed allegations at the top of the list are domestic violence related child abuse, child endangerment, and then sexual abuse and other neglect are very close. And other neglect includes abandonment, educational neglect, failure to protect, failure to thrive, or sibling child at risk. And then where are these reports coming from? The majority come from law enforcement, and then from schools, family, and health services. And again, this data is from Utah. So this is Davis County Children's Justice Center data. They conduct interviews and medical exams when child abuse investigations are taking place. This is data from 2020 to 2024. They are a wonderful resource for our community. So Safe Harbor is our domestic violence shelter in Davis County. I think they're one of the presenters today. In 2024, they received 3,054 calls, and then law enforcement conducted 649 lethality assessment protocols. So there was a law passed in 2023 that required law enforcement, when they responded to situations of intimate partner violence, that they conducted a lethality assessment protocol. And the protocol just assesses the risk of serious injury or death to the victim and connects them to resources. So older adults are a growing population in Utah. Their population is expected to double by 2060. And as that population increases, the reports of elder abuse are unfortunately going to increase as well. So this is Davis County data. This is from Adult Protective Services, the number of calls that they received in 2023 and in 2024. It shows the supported cases, the supported rates, and supported means that there is reasonable basis to conclude that abuse, neglect, or exploitation occurred. The most common allegations for elder abuse are financial exploitation, emotional abuse, and caretaker neglect. And on the form, when people report cases of elder abuse, it asks, how did you hear about Adult Protective Services? And the majority marked unknown, but some learned about it through workplace training, or they had prior contact with APS, or they did a search online. So abuse and violence are preventable. We want to get way upstream and prevent them from happening in the first place. And prevention requires efforts from all of us. The Abuse Prevention Work Group started in September of 2022. This is a fantastic group, a dedicated group. We meet every other month. And if you would like to join the Abuse Prevention Work Group, my contact information is at the end. You're more than welcome actually to put it in the chat or to email me. And I'd be happy to invite you to be a part of this work group. The vision of the work group is a safe and connected Davis County community, actively preventing all forms of abuse across the lifespan. And this is our logic model. This is a part of the Community Health Improvement Plan. It's a snapshot of our strategic plan, and it includes the situation, strategies, goals, and outcomes. And I did want to emphasize the strategies are to advance healthy relationship initiatives, to promote social norms that protect against violence, abuse, and adversity, support the community to recognize, intervene, and respond to abuse, and identify and collect Davis County abuse and violence data. And our strategic plan, the Community Health Improvement Plan, can be found online. So we do have some resources that I wanted to make you aware of. The Violence, Abuse, and Trauma Resource List is available at this link, the directories.davisforhealth.org. This is a 14-page plus document that has many resources related to abuse and trauma. This is updated annually. The last update, we included information on youth offender treatment for sexual misconduct. And then also we have some resources coming out. This Healthy Relationship Education Resource is a comprehensive list of healthy relationship education resources in Davis County. This should be available very soon. We also have the Healthy Sexual Development Resource List. We know that when parents talk to children about healthy sexual development in an age-appropriate way, that this reduces the risk of child abuse and specifically child sexual abuse. This is a 2-page resource list, and I can get that to you if you want to email me. This hasn't been posted anywhere on our website yet, but we hope to do that soon. So this is my contact information. If you'd like any of those resources, or if you'd like to join the Abuse Prevention Work Group, you're welcome to call me or email me. Are there any questions about the information that we just shared?
I'm looking to see if there was anything in the chat. I think somebody asked about this being recorded. I think that was answered, right, Travis? It is being recorded.
That's right. Yep. Virtual forums are recorded, and then they're put on our YouTube channel. And when we have our follow-up email, I'll send out the link.
I see that I saw already put the link in the chat where the plan can be found. That group that Marcy leads there is so dynamic. And I would strongly encourage you to participate. If you really want to know what's happening in Davis County, it's a great place to hear that information. Marcy, thank you very much. Okay, we'll turn it over to you, Joey.
All right. Give me a second to find where I'm sharing from.
Yes, always. I know some people with Google Meet, it's like, where is it? So, oh, looks like you got it.
I got it. We use Google Meets, so it's more about how many tabs does my brain have open versus how many tabs does my computer have open, and can I navigate to where the actual slides are? But we got it, I think. Hello, everybody. My name is Joey Thurgood. I am the home visiting director for Weber and Davis County at Prevent Child Abuse Utah. We provide home visiting services throughout the state in Davis, Iron, Tooele, Washington, and Weber counties. But my area is Davis and Weber County. And I wanted to, I'm actually more nervous about this presentation than I normally get about presentations, just because it's a short time frame and I got to zip through a lot. So hopefully this makes sense. I want to share with you information about my area, which is home visiting, but also talk a little bit about some of the other services that Prevent Child Abuse Utah supports, some of which Deb is a better person to talk about than I am, but we'll get to that in just a bit. So in Weber and Davis County, we provide 2 home visiting programs. And if you consider early childhood home visiting as kind of a pyramid, the very tip of that is the Nurse Family Partnership. It's the home visiting program that we provide that is the furthest upstream, that engages parents at the earliest point. And then the other one that we provide in Davis County is the Parents as Teachers program. But before we get into the details of the programs, I just kind of wanted to, let's see, I am going to have to switch screens. Okay. I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about why it matters. In 2023, the Surgeon General's, the U.S. Surgeon General's office put out this report, Parents Under Pressure. And what we know when we think about root causes of child maltreatment or neglect, what we know is that it often just starts with the stressors, right? And in 2023, 33% of parents reported having higher levels of stress in the past month compared to 20% of other adults. And of course, we know there are a lot of common stressors. One that is not listed on this list, though, is trauma, parental trauma that they carry with them that can be passed down through generations. We know that maternal and paternal mental health have significant impacts on the well-being and the safety of children. And so if we want to have healthy, safe children, we need to make sure that we're addressing the underappreciated impact of parental stress and parental well-being, because we know for a fact that caregivers need care too. So let's talk first about home visiting and what it offers. First of all, both of the home visiting programs that we offer in Davis County are free. They come into your home. If you're not comfortable having a home visitor in your home, you can actually come and have your home visits at our office in our cozy little home visit room. So we make sure that it's very convenient. We make sure that we work with the family to make it as effective as possible. Both of our home visiting programs include lots of assessments and screenings for both the parent and the child to ensure well-being and health and development for the child, but also to ensure that the parent is doing okay with the added stressors and responsibilities of parenthood. Every activity has an interactive piece to it, which is intended to promote development and attachment. That parent-child interaction is one of the most important social connections that are going to be made by your baby very early, and is fundamental to their growth, their healthy growth and well-being. And finally, we promote social connection through our home visiting programs. We do that not only in each individual visit, but we also do it through our monthly group connections, which is basically activities that we had every single month of the year that focus on one of the protective factors or focus on one of our priority areas. And we bring families from both programs together to get to know one another, to allow their kids to play, and to learn new things. Naturally, of course, with home visiting programs, we're always tracking milestones. And if we identify areas where there may be delay, then we tap into our vast resource network that we've developed in order to refer families to the resources that they need for their child's continued health and development. So as I mentioned before, 2 visits per month. This is specifically focused on parents as teachers, this slide, but it's very much in line with Nurse Family Partnership as well. The primary focus areas within the Parents as Teachers program are the parent-child interaction piece, developmental parenting, and family well-being. We use a strength-based approach, which helps our parents, it kind of gives them the ability to be empowered to improve developmental outcomes and decrease their child's risk for child abuse and neglect and other adverse childhood experiences. All of the activities that are provided are age appropriate based upon the developmental of the child. And the cool thing about the activities that are done in home visits is it's not just a home visitor coming in and saying, okay, this is the activity I brought for us to work on. They will actually plan with the parent in advance, discuss what the parent wants to focus on for the next visit, and then they will engage the parent in helping to bring together the materials for the activity. So they're being taught how to plan activities, how to carry the activities out, and how to really build that strong parent-child bond with their little one. We also are constantly connecting to community resources, and I love being able to come onto this call because we're still pretty new in Davis County, and so we're working really hard right now to build up that referral and resource network so that we can get our families access to the services that they need within the county. Okay, so here's an example of some of the assessments and screenings that are done. These are specifically for parents as teachers. A lot of these are done in the Nurse Family Partnership as well, but they have additional screenings that they use that are swapped out that might be a little bit different than the ones that we use for parents as teachers. Now, one of the ways that we reduce child maltreatment and risk for adverse childhood experiences is by elevating and advancing the 5 protective factors. Our home visiting programs are very much focused on increasing parental resilience, increasing social connection, increasing knowledge of parenting and child development, increasing concrete supports, and also increasing social and emotional competence of children. I think I just heard a hand go up. I think, but I'm on another screen. Does somebody have a question or a comment? Nope, no hand went up. Okay. I'm toggling between screens, so please do interrupt me if you have any questions.
Or hearing things, it doesn't matter.
I'm just hearing things, you know how
Okay.
it goes. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about why home visiting matters. And as you can see right there at the very top in the center, home visiting has an evidence base that shows that it is effective in decreasing rates of child abuse and neglect. It decreases risk of adverse childhood experiences. It increases protective factors. It empowers families to be their own advocate, to be able to reach their goals, to set and reach goals. And we see better outcomes for mental health for both mothers, but also their children and their mental health as they develop as well. So let's just kind of look at the numbers. We'll talk about PAT first. We'll talk about NFP next. These are kind of the things that we know through all of the years of evidence that have been collected around this. And I just wanted to point out that with the Parents as Teachers program, we see a 22% decrease in the likelihood of child maltreatment. And we see 50% fewer cases of suspected abuse or neglect reported. Another really amazing purpose of the Parents as Teachers program is to increase early literacy and to help children achieve better in school. We want to make sure that they're kindergarten ready and that they are ready to learn. And through this program, over 75% of children who are enrolled in kindergarten are ready when it's time to begin. We also find that 50% fewer children we'll see older children that have maybe been engaged in special education programs, but younger children who are coming through in that same family we see about half that, how many the additional siblings that will end up having to take special education classes. Now, as we look at NFP, this one, and as I mentioned, this is kind of the tip of the iceberg or the pyramid when it comes to home visiting for our program anyway. The Nurse-Family Partnership is the one that starts the earliest. In order to engage in Nurse-Family Partnership or NFP, you have to enroll in the program before the 28th week of pregnancy. You have a trained nurse who comes into the home twice a month. They perform, during the pregnancy, they're checking the vitals, they're checking the blood pressure, they're monitoring for any problems, and they're making recommendations on preparing for the baby, on preparing themselves. They're providing resources. They're helping mom set goals to improve her outcomes in it. And that program actually ages out when the child is 2 years old. And that's at that point that we hope that NFP families will roll over into our Parents as Teachers groups and continue on until the child turns 5. So I've got this. I will actually pop back over to this slide, but I just wanted to show you a couple of other things if I can find the right page. Okay, so in addition to our home visiting programs, I'm just going to navigate you to our website. You can sign up for for our home visiting programs through our website. You can also sign up for and take different educational programs that we have available. For teachers in the school setting, they can log in and take, this is a requirement required by law in the state of Utah for adults working with children and youth to take this training. It takes, I think, about 40 minutes. It's free. You get a certificate at the end that you can turn in. It is available not just to teachers, but is recommended for any adults that are working with youth. Additionally, we have our prevention programs in the school. We have programs that are age-appropriate programs that are taught within classrooms starting in the 3rd grade. Most of those programs are provided in the elementary setting, but there are programs available in secondary school that focus on child abuse and neglect, shaken baby syndrome, bullying prevention, healthy relationships. And so there's just a wide range of education available to kids across their educational years. And then we also have the Utah Educator course, which I just showed you. And then in addition to that, we have trainings that are built specifically to help parents understand sexual abuse and grooming behaviors so that they can best protect their children. And then we have this other one that is for coaches and youth leadership. And then I'm just going to really quickly bring you to the Utah Family Strengthening Network page. And I'm not going to go into a lot of depth on this because of our network of volunteers who provide the training, the standards training and the protective factor framework training, Deb Comstock is one of our rock stars. While Prevent Child Abuse Utah provides is kind of the backbone organization for the Utah Family Strengthening Network, this is a training that is provided by volunteers across the state. It is a national certification, the standards training. You can go to our website to learn more. Additionally, we have the protective factor training that is provided. I can't remember if that's a certification as well, Deb, or if it's just the standards, and maybe you could clarify.
It can be if you want the full training of it, but it doesn't have to be.
Gotcha. Wonderful. These programs are required learning for our staff. We ensure that all of our staff are trained on the standards, on the protective factor framework. The purpose for that is because we really do want our staff to be as trauma informed as possible. I love that you've added the link to the Davis County Trauma Awareness Seminar that's upcoming. As long as those trainings are available, everyone on our staff is required to complete both all of the trainings, standards training, the protective factor framework, and the trauma awareness seminars as provided by Trauma Informed Utah. We recognize that in a lot of ways, we are kind of the front line for a lot of parents who maybe are less familiar with their community or unsure how to advocate for themselves. A home visitor can help them learn how to navigate those resources, how to advocate for themselves, and how to be the best advocate that they can be for their family. I hope that this was a really fast overview. I could talk about this for 2 hours. I recognize that I do not have that time, so I hope that this was helpful. I am going to put a link in the chat to our website where you can refer people for home visiting, sign up for educational courses, take those self-guided courses online, or have presenters come out and talk to your group. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, or we'll call on you. You can come off mute and ask Joey whatever you want. Joey, talk about rock stars. You guys have so much information. You covered it really well. And if anyone's looking for trainings, there's a place definitely to go. We should all be up to date. There's some things in there I had not heard of, so thank you for sharing that, Joey.
You bet.
Yes, Travis just gave you an applause. There you go. Rounds of applause for all of you. Very good job. Thanks, Joey.
Thanks.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on now to Hannah from Safe Harbor. Hannah, take it away.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Let me get my screen up here.
Before we move on,
Yes.
or maybe we could address these questions at the end, but we did have a couple just pop in.
Oh,
Looks
Yeah,
like
I can answer those real quick. There are income restrictions. Basically, if a family qualifies for SNAP or WIC, they qualify for our home visiting programs. We did have a home visitors in Davis County that did not have income restrictions. Unfortunately, that funding is ending, so we are held to the SNAP WIC funding restrictions. And Rachel, yes, we do. We have Spanish, we have an entire team of Spanish speaking home visitors in both Weber and Davis County, and they are able to, they actually have some space on their case lists or their caseloads. We're still ramping a few of those up. So if you're interested, please feel free to use the link at the website. I'm going to pop that in. Oh, or maybe I'm not, if I can get it, but I'll pop the link into the website. You can actually go through there and in through the portal and recommend sign up families for home visiting from there. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for catching those, Travis. I'm not seeing them. Hey, Hannah.
Okay. So my name's Hannah. I'm the Director of Community Advocacy at Safe Harbor, and I oversee our outreach advocates as well as our prevention program. Normally you get my lovely prevention advocate, Abby, but she is actually out doing prevention in the community this morning, so I'm sorry you have to deal with me. Okay. Let's see if this will work for me. There we go. Okay. So speaking of trauma-informed care, kind of how Safe Harbor integrates that into our work. Well, first, if you're not aware of Safe Harbor, we are a domestic violence and sexual assault service provider in Davis County. And we strive to be as trauma-informed as possible. We're always learning more about trauma-informed care and continuing to educate our staff and volunteers. So just like a little bit about what we do with that is all new staff and volunteers have to do a 40-hour training that is focused on trauma-informed care about how to talk to survivors, how to approach different subjects, certain things like that. And then every year they actually have to recertify with 16 hours of that similar training. And then something that is newer to us, and I haven't heard a lot of people talking about, is like trauma-informed spaces and design. So our buildings have like certain colors and designs that have like a little bit of research behind them to be like more welcoming and calming. And then trauma-informed spaces would be like making sure all of our offices are like really organized and clean. And if a client is in an office with us, they have direct access to the door. We're not blocking the door from them. Just little things like that that can make a difference with rapport when you're working with survivors. And then next I have a little short video. A couple people have mentioned the upstream approach, and I just have a video kind of explaining that. If it doesn't work, I will explain what's going on, but hopefully it works this time.
Imagine a warm, sunny afternoon. Suddenly, you spot someone in the river being swept downstream and struggling to stay afloat. Without hesitation, you jump into the river and help the person to shore. As you help that person dry off, you hear another cry for help. Someone else is being swept downstream. Immediately, you jump into the water again and pull out this second person. This scenario continues all afternoon. As you pull someone safely to land, you have to jump back in and save someone else. Finally, you say, "I can't go on like this," and walk upstream to see what's happening. As you walk upstream, you warn other bystanders. "People are falling in the river. Please help them. Tell everyone you know." Finally, you find the problem. You notice a large hole in a bridge which is causing people to fall in. Something must be done. First, you put up a sign to warn others about the hole in the bridge. You warn anyone you see about the hole and ask them to help spread the word of caution. You even start offering classes to help people in the community learn how to swim, just in case they do fall in. Finally, you realize that to truly minimize the problem, you have to repair the bridge. You work with others in the community to close the hole. Occasionally, some people still fall in, but there are far fewer people that need to be saved.
Okay. So at Safe Harbor, I mean, there's different points in that video of how a community helps someone who's in distress or who's experienced abuse. And at Safe Harbor, we interact in all of those situations down the river, and not one job is more important than the other. But today I'm going to focus a little bit more on like the prevention side of what we do, because we don't get to talk about that too much, which is going to be like the swim lessons, telling people, warning people about the hole in the bridge, and then fixing the bridge with other community members. So a little bit about what we do at Safe Harbor when talking about prevention is we do tabling and awareness. So tabling is when we go out in the community, we bring all of our marketing material, our flyers, our we have like cute little buttons and stickers and all of that kind of fun stuff that we set out to bring awareness to not only our services, but that there is abuse happening in Davis County. So we go to a lot of police department safety nights, fire department open houses, community events like youth mental health screenings and Davis Pride. We'll go to the school district help nights. And then we have been to a heavy metal concert and a roller derby jam recently, which was pretty fun. And then we'll actually take our pamphlets and tear-offs and brochures to hospitals, police stations, or any other community partners that request them. And then we offer an agency overview. So this is offered to all of our volunteer groups or anyone in the community that's requesting information about Safe Harbor. So it's an overview of our services and then a quick introduction to domestic violence and sexual assault and how to be a supportive friend, partner, family member, and then also a little bit about bystander intervention. Healthy relationships is something we've gone into in the past, I think it's been 2 years. So we took Safe Dates curriculum and we condensed it into a presentation we were able to bring to the junior highs and high schools in Davis County. So we teach these at the health classes and the Hope Squad classes, but it's discussions about dating abuse, consent, boundaries, and being a supportive friend. We're currently partnered with 4 junior highs and 7 high schools. We've taught 88 classes in 2024, reaching over 2,000 students. And this year, actually this week, we got invited to do a Healthy Relationships Week at Davis High in New Ames. And that's just when we go to their lunches and we bring activities to do and we talk to the kids about healthy relationships if they want to engage with us. So that's been super fun this week. We also started a new psychoeducational class called Educated Parents. So it's Dating Matters and Sapria curriculums. So there's 2 different groups. So there's 3 weeks for parents of kids aged 0 to 9. And then there's a 6 weeks for parents of kids aged 10 to 14. And it's discussions about preventing child abuse and teen dating violence. And then we also have a Safe Place to Work program. So this is offered to businesses in the community looking to increase awareness about domestic violence and sexual assault prevention in their workplace. So we'll do a review of their sexual harassment policies and help create a workplace safety plan. And then a yearly review allows the business to be certified as a safe place to work by Safe Harbor, and they get this cool little sticker they can put in their window. It's a really cool program, and we really enjoy doing it with our community partners. And then a question I get a lot when I talk about prevention, because prevention can seem a little bit overwhelming, but it is possible, as some of the other presenters before me have said. So what I like to bring up with how you can help with prevention, one is just talk about it. It's super easy just to talk about our services and what you've learned here today, but there's also something called the bystander effect. And the bystander effect is when, there's an emergency situation going on or any sort of situation going on, and the more people that are around, the less likely it is for someone to step in and help. And there's certain factors to that. I won't get too into it because I could talk about it for a while, but we'll kind of go over just some quick tips if you ever do want to step in as a bystander. So we call it the 5 Ds of bystander intervention. So the first one's distract. So if you're seeing someone being harassed in public, you can take an indirect approach to de-escalating the situation. So you could draw attention away from them. You can ask for directions. You can ask for the time. You could drop something, anything to kind of distract, but not putting yourself right in the middle. The next one is delegate. So if you can find someone in like in a position of authority, like a bus driver, a flight attendant, security guard, store manager is probably a big one. And you can ask them for help. You can also check in with the person who's being harassed. You can ask them if they want you to call the police, or you can call only call the police if they like explicitly tell you to. In domestic violence situations, sometimes calling the police can escalate certain situations, and the person that's in that abusive situation knows best about their situation. And when you're in a domestic violence situation, your power and control is getting taken away from you. So we want to do everything we can to give that power and control back, and that's letting them make decisions for themselves. Document. So it can be helpful for the person who's being harassed to have a video or other evidence of the incident if they were ever to want like a protective order or to file anything with the police. There are laws about recording in public varying, on the state that you live in. In Utah, I believe if one person, so if like I'm recording someone else and I'm aware I'm recording, I believe that's legal, but you'll have to double check on that for me. But you want to keep a safe distance. You want to film like street signs and other landmarks that identify the location. You want to say the date and time. You're always going to want to ask the person who's being harassed what they want to do with that video footage. We never want to post it online. We never want to do anything without their consent. Again, it can just create a lot of safety issues for them if we were to do something without their permission. And then delay. So after the incident is over, you want to check in with the person who's being harassed, who was being harassed. You say, can I sit with you? Can I accompany you somewhere? What do you need? Again, this is asking them what they need. We can give some options, but ultimately we want them to make the decision so they can have that power and control back. And then direct. So assess your safety first. And then you want to speak up about the harassment and being firm and clear. So if you're seeing someone being harassed, that's inappropriate, leave them alone. You want it to be, clear and assertive, but you also want to make sure you're keeping yourself safe. And I'll talk about that in a second. So ultimately, we're all about safety. So when you're deciding if you're going to intervene in a situation, you want to ask some questions to yourself. Am I safe? Will I continue to be safe if I intervene? What are my options for a safe escape if I feel unsafe? Can I get support from others around me? So it's okay to not intervene in a situation if you feel unsafe. You can get help from someone else. Safety planning for anyone planning on intervening is essential for providing the best intervention and ensuring the least amount of harm, because that's what we're trying to do with bystander intervention, is create safety and ensure the least amount of harm for every single person involved. And I know I'm a fast talker, so if you have any questions, just let me know. But this is our crisis hotline, our website, and then my contact information. If you want to do any of the, community presentations or anything like that, you're welcome to call our crisis hotline, but you can also contact me directly. But yeah, I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Hannah. I'm checking the chat right now to see if there's any specific questions. You gave a lot of really good information. Especially appreciate all of you with the prevention approach to this. and for picking up on the information about bystanders. So thank you very much, Hannah. Any questions? And great video too. I like that.
Thanks.
You just got a virtual party horn and some virtual hand clapping. So good for you.
Awesome. Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's move to our next presentation, which would be John Cowan. John, am I saying your name right? John Cowan, right? I'm saying it right. I see you all the time. It'd be nice if I pronounced your name right.
Yes.
Senior Services.
John is having some technical difficulties.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Maybe, we may be switching computers really quick. If there's somebody else that can go.
I think I can check with our next presenters and see if they'd be willing to step in while you guys, I know how it is with tech stuff. You go right ahead and take a look at what you need to do. Brittany and Shannon, can I impose on you to pick up with your presentation?
Yes, I think we don't have a problem stepping in right now, Shannon, if that works for you.
Yep, that's great.
Okay. So we'll just start with some intros. My name is Brittany Peterson. I'm a licensed marital and family therapist and clinical mental health counselor. Shannon and I both work at Soul Recovery Community Incorporated, which is here in Woods Cross. So we service the Bountiful area, but we get clients from all over. So Shannon, go ahead. I'll let you, introduce yourself, and then we'll just kind of jump into our material. We don't have slides today, but we do just have some information that we want to share and kind of familiarize everyone with our approach to abuse prevention.
Yeah, thanks, Brittany. So my name is Shannon Bussey. I am an ACMHC here at Soul Recovery Community. And like Brittany said, we don't have slides, but we do have one pagers, which we'll put up on the screen at the end and kind of share a little bit more about what our services look like. And here at Soul, we really take a community approach to serving our clients because we believe that healing happens in community and that everyone is recovering from something, whether that's addiction or domestic violence or abuse or trauma or depression, anxiety, all the different things. And so we're going to just share a little bit about, what we do here and our approach to serving in this space.
Yep. So let me just kind of overview all the services that we provide. We're kind of a catch-all little clinic here. We're a young agency here in the area, but we're rapidly growing and we have probably more clients than we can handle right now, but that's always a great problem to have. So the services we provide are for families and individuals, specifically dealing with domestic violence, including survivors and offenders or perpetrators, addiction, and just general mental health. So Shannon, I think, is going to break down just a little bit of what all of those services look like, because like I said, it's very much a catch-all approach, and we can provide a lot of different treatments for those issues.
Okay, so we get a lot of referrals from caseworkers in the DCFS system. We also get referrals from parole officers, from people who are in the legal system like lawyers or guardian ad litems, and we get referrals from community partners. Sometimes it's judges. Sometimes we get clients that have been ordered to come in and complete assessments. And we have gone through the training in the state, and we're trained to take these assessments and do, like Brittany mentioned, domestic violence offender assessments, domestic violence victim assessments, and all of the paperwork and, the different complexities that go along with those cases. All the clinicians here at Soul are trained to do those. And so we definitely take a very trauma-informed approach to each and every one of our clients. And so we get these calls from referral partners or sometimes directly from the client saying that they were referred to us or they need to complete such and such an assessment. And so we set them up to come in and do a thorough intake assessment, which is usually 90 minutes to 2 hours. And we do a lot of mental health assessments. So we really understand the context of what these clients are dealing with and what their symptoms look like, as well as getting the paperwork and the documentation from their cases, if they're involved in an active DCFS case or an active legal case, so that we understand all the different moving parts. And then We get client consent to communicate with anyone that we might need to communicate with, so that that is all done in a very transparent and client-informed, client-centered way. Just like Safe Harbor wants to empower clients to make their own choices in that regard, as clinicians, we do that as well. Sometimes our clients come in and they have been misunderstood by many, many people in their lives, and also the systems that they interact with. And they're afraid of mental health services, sometimes due to stigma, due to personal circumstances that they've had. And so we are very mindful of this. And our main goal as clinicians is to help them feel safe enough that they can open up and they can receive services, that they can start to talk about what they have been through and what they've experienced. And then we're able to take that assessment, and then we create a summary and then treatment recommendations based on all the different parts that the state requires for some of these assessments. And we'll recommend individual therapy for them. We'll recommend group treatment. We do run groups for domestic violence offenders, and we run groups for domestic violence victims. And we also have mental health and substance use recovery group that we run on a daily basis, and also have evening hours to increase accessibility for those that may be working during the day. If our agency is not a right fit for our client, we do refer to other agencies that we know have the services that they're needing, and try as much as we can to offer a warm handoff so that these clients don't get lost in the system. And I'm going to kick it over to Brittany to talk a little bit more about how we stay trauma informed.
Yep, thanks for covering that, Shannon. As we all know, the state of Utah has some stringent requirements for therapists who are providing services for DV clients. So domestic violence, interpartner violence, kind of an interchangeable term there. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that because all of we providers who provide those services have to be trained with that relevant training for the state. So all that to say, we want to just get into a little bit of the research and just share some stats, some overlap that we see between trauma and substance use. So over 75% of individuals in addiction treatment have a reported history of trauma. So that's 70%, that's a lot of people. So a lot of times we have people dealing with PTSD symptoms, and they may come in presenting with some substance use challenges. And so we're very mindful here at our clinic to make sure that we treat ethically, that we treat the right problem first. So sometimes we may have to complete that thorough assessment and then determine that maybe substance use treatment is more appropriate to begin with in order to reach that level of stability and homeostasis before we get into the PTSD. But with that trauma presence at that 70%, 75%, there's definitely some overlap. So there's also a level of dual diagnosis that we see a lot in our office here. So dual diagnosis is, of course, just having a comorbid diagnosis with substance use and with an addiction. So any sort of the addiction abuse, diagnoses. So that's about 50% that have a dual diagnosis that we see coming in here. And then a lot of times we know this too, addiction even starts from a way of surviving trauma. So those with a history of trauma, a lot of times, even in especially adolescents, a lot of adolescents who come in, I think it's 70% of adolescents in substance use treatment have a history of trauma. So already at that early stage of life, they're experiencing, some severe trauma. And so we see that substance use challenge and diagnosis begin to pop up at that point, which we know can affect families, which is another thing we're mindful of here. So we do individual as well as the family treatment. And then I know we're kind of short on time here, but to lead into the next part of kind of the clinical overview of our services and what we feel like is just important to share to lower the stigma around trauma and around the violence that we are kind of addressing is just the definitions of IPV and DV. So let me just kind of break that down, and then I'll hand it off to Shannon to hit on some of the key points that we try to stay mindful of to prevent the abuse throughout the treatment. So IPV is defined as psychological aggression, physical, sexual violence, stalking, and or coercive control between sexual, dating, marital, or romantic partners. So, it doesn't have to just be a married couple. Of course, it could be anyone. It could be even in a family system, which down the line may lead to more violence in the family. So a lot of times dysfunction can kind of lead to that abuse. And then a lot of times we see that IPV between partners and spouses. But domestic violence itself is very common among American families. So almost 20% of all marriages and intimate partnerships in couples will slap, shove, hit, or otherwise assault each other. Emotional abuse, verbal threats, humiliating and degrading remarks, and controlling behavior is even more common. So those are all things that we're very mindful of from the first contact that we have with the client or with a referral source, so that we can make sure and put them in the right category of treatment and line them up with the right therapist. So Shannon, I think, is going to break down a little bit of the abuse prevention and aspects of what the IPV looks like.
Okay, thanks. So we know that victims are very vulnerable and at risk. We also know that if we only work with victims and we aren't helping the offenders and helping them address the trauma and the social modeling that has increased their use of violence in the home, we're not actually working upstream in a way that we need to. We need to be able to prevent the abuse that reoffense can address. And so that is one reason that why we're very passionate of working with offenders here at Soul. And we'll sometimes find that an offender is mandated for an assessment, and we'll find that they're actually married to or living with the primary aggressor. And it can get really complex trying to unpack some of those dynamics, but we meet every client where they are, and we really look at all of the things that are happening. And so some of the different types of abusive behavior that can be happening in these relationships, there's IPV, intimate partner violence, and DV, domestic violence. There can be physical abuse, sexual violence. There can be a risk of homicide, and we do lethality assessments with each of our victims that comes in. We look at the context of psychological or emotional abuse. We look to see if there's verbal abuse or financial abuse. Sometimes low income makes people more vulnerable to financial abuse. If there's any reactionary or reactive abuse that's happening in the relationship, we're equipped to deal with that. And if there's legal or systemic abuse, which is very, very common, there's post-separation abuse and difficult things that are happening as people are trying to navigate as co-parents. And then we also look at the effects on children and family that are exposed to this abuse, and whether there's any PTSD symptoms or related mental health symptoms. And because we're low on time, I think I'm not going to share the one pager. I'll just make sure that that gets sent to Travis so that he can put it into the resources, because I don't want to take up too much time from our next presenter. But we thank you very much for the chance to overview some of these ideas.
Yep. I think we may be at time here. The last thing I just wanted to hit on was just on the tail end of what Shannon just shared, which is all the different kinds of abuse that we encounter. Another one that I imagine we're all familiar with here in Utah is religious or spiritual abuse, with the dominant religion as a part of the culture, which can be very much a protective factor. It can also be an aspect to be mindful of when it comes to trauma history influencing substance use or interpartner violence. So there's so many things to be aware of, and we also try our very best between all of we clinicians here providing services to be mindful of clients who may be more susceptible to trauma or to substance use disorders or interpartner violence and safety issues in the home. And those might include low socioeconomic populations, as well as rural populations, women and females, as well as people of color and immigrants. Those are all key populations to be mindful of who may not have the access to the mental health resources. So we always try to do the best we can to develop community relationships and put those resources out there. So we have that one sheet of resources that we provide here at Soul, but we also try to do our best to stay plugged in with the community. So we're very grateful to be a part of this, and we're also learning from all of you guys, and we're grateful to share services throughout mental health in this area in the community. So thank you guys for letting us have some time here this morning. If there are any questions, please let us know in the chat.
Deb, would you like me to begin presenting? Uh-oh, maybe Deb's having computer problems like I was. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. And John, go ahead and present.
All right, I
If
appreciate
there's
it.
any questions that they have for Brittany or Shannon, we can pull them up address them at the end. So.
All right. Well, first off, thank you for your patience. Nothing got my heart rate higher today than having my computer give me the black screen of death minutes before I was supposed to present. So luckily my computer's back up and running, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here to speak to you about another population that is greatly affected by abuse, and that's our elderly population and our vulnerable adults. So I'm here to talk a little bit about the Davis County Coalition for Abuse Prevention of the Elderly. Let's see if I can get this to work right. And so we are a multidisciplinary team based here in Davis County. We were established in 2015, so it's crazy to think we're going on 10 years of this work, but our purpose is to increase community awareness of abuse and exploitation of vulnerable and older adults. We are comprised of a number of community partners, including professionals from Davis County Senior Services, Adult Protective Services, the Medicaid Fraud and Patient Abuse Division of the Utah Attorney General's Office, the Davis County Sheriff's Office, Division for People with Disabilities, the Long-Term Care Ombudsman. We have representation from our domestic violence groups with Safe Harbor, the Alzheimer's Association, AARP. We have an elder law attorney who also participates. And so we are comprised of a very diverse group of individuals who all touch on this very important topic of elder abuse. And so our primary goal, as many of you share this goal, is prevention. We want to do what we can to prevent cases of elder abuse from occurring. And we do that through increasing community awareness. We gather together as a group monthly, and we do so in a hybrid setting so people can attend either in person or virtually. And by doing so, that allows a large number of participants to attend. And every quarter we have a training topic that we go over that touches on elder abuse or exploitation. And one of the most beneficial parts of our meeting is our case staffing portion of the meeting. And this is where individuals can bring a specific case that maybe they've hit some roadblocks or some walls in knowing how to help these individuals, and they can bring that to the group, and we can troubleshoot together, think of new ideas and new ways of providing assistance to these individuals. And most of the participants of our meeting agree that the case staffing portion of the meeting is the most beneficial part. And so 10 years ago, we became aware of the need to form a multidisciplinary team to address this issue. And our efforts really align with several community initiatives. So for instance, it aligns nicely with our Davis County Health Department strategic plan. We have a Area Agency on Aging Senior Services 4-year plan that it aligns with. It aligned with the ACL goals before the ACL was disbanded earlier this month. It aligns with the Department of Justice goals, the Alzheimer's State Plan. It ties in with objectives that we have through our AmeriCorps, our Retired and Senior Volunteer Program objectives. And most importantly, it aligns with the Human Services Director's strategic plan as it relates to safety. And so we are closely affiliated with the Abuse Prevention Work Group that Marcy mentioned earlier. So we do take a multidisciplinary approach. So we work on making sure we have the right people at the table who can help provide resources and assistance. We make sure that every voice is heard. We do require confidentiality when we do our case staffing so that it's a safe place to discuss specific cases. Our representatives are very passionate, and it's an opportunity for us to network and to share information and to learn from each other. As it relates to a trauma-informed approach, we do try to make sure we're implementing a trauma-informed approach to our work. For example, we remind CAPE participants that when they discuss cases, they're to avoid speaking in technical terms or using acronyms or jargon. And we ask that they be mindful of the manner in which they describe, present, or explain those we serve, and to use respectful and non-judgmental language. We understand that both the perpetrators and the victims in these abuse situations often both carry trauma from previous experiences, and so we try to be non-judgmental as we talk about them. As it relates to trustworthiness and transparency, like I mentioned earlier, we do require all participants to sign a confidentiality agreement. This makes it so that we can have open and transparent discussion about these cases, and it promotes trustworthiness amongst our group, knowing that what we share in those meetings stays in the meeting. As it relates to peer support, we understand that when dealing with cases of abuse, it can be difficult for providers or agencies touching on these cases. And we have found it to be helpful to have a safe place where we can share these experiences and feel supported in our efforts to prevent abuse. The next point, collaboration. Because each agency or partner has limited jurisdictions, we've seen how helpful it is for staff to staff cases as a group. So while one agency may have to stop at a certain point with their advocacy, another agency may have a different scope or a more broad scope, which allows them to then pick up where the other agency left off. So we see this often with our law enforcement. They have to look at things from a very narrow lens when they're looking at helping these individuals, but there are other agencies that can provide more wraparound services when law enforcement has to pull out of those situations. Next is empowerment. Participants often report that they feel more empowered learning about how other agencies assist in different circumstances. So as part of our group, we have had presentations in the past where each agency goes through and explains kind of what their jurisdiction is, what actions they are allowed to take, and ways that they can intervene in these circumstances. And so that's been extremely empowering, learning about what resources are out there. And then lastly, we address cultural issues. As we talk about our aging population, often we see examples of ageism occurring. And we try to be mindful of how we talk about our aging population so that we're not promoting ageist ideals. And so I put a link in here to Reframe Aging. That's a wonderful resource if you want to learn ways that you can change your language as it relates to our aging population and to treat them with the respect and dignity that they deserve. So some of the lessons we've learned as we've gone on this journey, starting this coalition, we are so much better together than we are individually. Many of our participants report how valuable the networking aspect of this group has been. A lot of people have a meeting after the meeting where they'll touch base with different partners and discuss cases one-on-one. And so it's nice to have that those connections so close at hand. In addition to that, we are able to come up with many creative solutions to some very complex problems. And it's because of the brains that are in that room. We have some very smart individuals who think very creatively and finding ways to help individuals who may find themselves in abusive or exploitative situations. So some of the accomplishments we had in our last calendar year, we have a vulnerable adult and exploitation resource guide available in English and Spanish. And so we are trying to get that out to all of our community partners. So I'll share that with Travis to include in the drive so that people can access this. We do ask that you share this. It talks about different signs of abuse and what resources exist to help individuals who might be in abusive situations and which agencies can be there to help. And I'm very glad to see that many of our partners here on the call are from those agencies. So thank you for the work you're doing. Additionally, we improved our tracking system for the case staffing that occurs. And last year we staffed over 20 cases. And this shows where those referrals came from. We had 9 referrals from Adult Protective Services, 5 from the Davis County Senior Services, and 6 from the Davis County Sheriff's Office. And so this is open. If any of our partners on the call have a specific abuse case involving a vulnerable adult or an older adult over the age of 60, please reach out to me. We could arrange for you to come and present that case to our group, and hopefully you'll leave with some additional resources and action steps that can be taken to help the people you're serving. And lastly, our CAPE model has been replicated throughout the state. So there are now multidisciplinary teams just like this in almost every area agency on aging throughout the state, doing similar work in their respective communities. So since I have a captive audience, I want to pose this question. What can you do to prevent elder abuse? So I have a few things here. First is you can share our Vulnerable Adult and Exploitation Resource Guide. You can advertise amongst your staff or those you're serving that we do have an opportunity to staff cases at our CAPE meeting. Another resource is our Utah Elder Legal Risk Detector tool. And this is a tool designed to act as a screening tool to detect potential legal issues for elders, including housing, debt, financial exploitation, healthcare, and abuse. And it's a collaboration of Pro Bono Net, the Utah Department of Health and Human Services, and Utah Legal Services. And so that's a resource we're trying to get out into the community. Individuals can go in, fill in the information, and then it can identify areas of risk that they may want to take a look at, and it can potentially connect them with resources, whether that's legal assistance or other agencies that can help provide assistance in addressing those risks. And then lastly, coming up on June 15th, every year on June 15th, we have our World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And if I have just a minute, I wanted to share with you a challenge. We call it the 615 challenge. And so the first is list 6 facts about elder abuse everyone should know. And then share one thing you can do to prevent elder abuse. And then tag 5 people to participate in this challenge. So here are some facts about elder abuse you can choose from. So for instance, 1 in 10 Americans age 60 plus have experienced elder abuse. As mentioned earlier, elder abuse is often very underreported. Some other examples here, elder abuse costs survivors billions of dollars each year. The annual loss by survivors of financial abuse is estimated to be between 2.6 billion and 36.5 billion. And so pick some facts here that you're willing to share, and then choose one thing you can do. So that could be reaching out and preventing isolation to an elder adult in your life. It could be providing respite breaks for caregivers. It could be volunteering to be a friendly visitor. If you're over the age of 55, we do have our retired and senior volunteer program here that can pair you up as a friendly visitor to a senior who needs some connection. And so choose one thing you can do, and then tag 5 more people to help do that as well. And so that's a brief overview of Coalition for Abuse Prevention of the Elderly. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I think you're on mute, Deb. Mute, Deb.
I think I fixed my mute button. Can you hear me now? Okay. Okay. John, way to leave it with a challenge for all of us, and appreciate the time that you did this for us today. Are there any other questions you want to put in the chat? We have these experts here today to answer them. I am so appreciative of the partners that presented. I look around and see who's here, and I'm thinking, oh, there's my people. There's my team. No way would I try to do this work in Davis County without them. So all the way from learning the facts about our county, how it looks, and with each of our presenters, their efforts at prevention and lining that up with trauma-informed. So thank you very much to all of our presenters today. Travis, we do have a couple of last words, right? First of all, Travis, you did put a link in the chat, or I think Isa did, about registering for the trauma-informed seminar. Encourage you to go to that. Usually it costs, but in Davis County, we've been able to cover the cost, so it's free for you. And then let's see. Oh, there is an evaluation at the end of this presentation. Travis, how will that evaluation look? No.
So it's pinned. At the very top of the chat, there is the link for the meeting evaluation. It's short. Please take it.
Please do the evaluation. We need this information back, and true to our model, we've presented the information. We brought in our pillars or experts in the community to talk to you about it. And hopefully you leave feeling more informed and empowered about how to work in Davis County. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next month.